There we go. All right, I am showing live. I'm just gonna double check here on my feed that I see us before I start talking here. Yep. All right, let's do this. So, have you ever felt a little insecure about the skin that you're in? Cece Cheney here, and if you felt this way, you're going to want to stay tuned to this very special interview that we've got going on tonight, because I have the absolute pleasure of chatting with Dominque Agnew, the founder, the creator of Hueversity, which is a platform created to change the narrative of how we perceive those with birthmarks and unique features. Thank you so much for joining me today, Dominque.
Thank you so much for having me, Cece. I'm so glad to be here.
No problem at all. I was just telling Dominque right before we got started that just in the marketing of this this live interview, I've had people reaching out to me all day long, telling me about their stories and their struggles of dealing with different skin insecurities. And so this is probably a more powerful topic that I think I even realized, and I'm really excited to see where your brand goes as a result of this.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So I guess we should start with the beginning, right? How in the world did this interview even happen, right? So I happened across Dominique's post where she was really celebrating that you were nominated to share your story in Voyage Houston. And of course, I'm nosy, so I hopped on over there and read that article, and I was just blown away by what it was that you were that you're doing, right? And so I know based on our conversations that meant a lot to you. Tell me a little bit about how it felt to reach that goal.
Wow. To even reach that goal, I felt a few things. I was excited. I was overwhelmed with emotion. I was just really, I couldn't believe it. I was in shock. And the reason why all of those things happened at one time was because I felt like, okay, Voyage Houston is a goal of mine. That's something that I would like to do further down the line. Hopefully I'll get featured. And it just came sooner than I thought. And I'm not upset with that. I'm totally happy with that. And then I was overwhelmed with emotion because I'm like, oh my gosh, my story is now on display for the world. And I had a mixed emotion there because I was like, I was ready. And Voyage Houston, their mission and goal, how they want to spotlight those with inspiring stories, it was just an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. So I was really excited to even be considered to share my story. And hopefully it just helps someone else along on their journey.
Absolutely. Well, I can tell you just from some conversations that I've had with some people today and sharing that article with other people, it has absolutely done that. One of the things that I love about what you just said is that I thought this was something that was going to happen later, right? I think a lot of people can relate to that. We have these goals that feel really big, they feel really far away. But when you get into activity, when you get into action about really doing that thing that's important to you, those things can speed up quite a bit.
Yes, they can.
Yeah.
Because, another thing, I saw a few of my Facebook friends, they had been featured with their businesses and platforms. And I'm like, oh, that is awesome. Always a cheerleader for others. And I'm like, when my time comes, I'll be ready. So needless to say, I was really excited about the opportunity. So I'm glad that, I'm able to share my story and it reached so many, or hopefully it reached many people.
Absolutely. And now we are all cheering for you, right? Because this is something that I think is really powerful. So one of the other goals, obviously, that you have been pursuing is the creation of the Hueversity platform. So some people might not be familiar about what Hueversity is. So can you share a little bit about your mission?
Sure. So Hueversity, let me just explain. Hues represent all of our shades, colors, and tones. And versity is the unique aesthetics that we have, whether it's mold. Mine is a birthmark. That's how it really started, me needing some inspiration for my birthmark. And everyone has unique aesthetics about themselves. So I just want to celebrate that and make people more aware. So going back to the mission though, but it's to empower and equip those who have the unique aesthetics and to bring awareness to a community that we're defining our own standards of beauty. We're not
Yeah.
going to look at society's standards and say, hey, just because I'm unique or different, I'm not worthy of beauty. I am. So that is what the platform is really all about.
Which is, I think, incredibly powerful, right? Because I think a lot of the time we grow up with this idea that beauty needs to look a certain way. And when we don't
Exactly.
look that way,
Mhm.
we shrink ourselves. At least that's been my experience. So it's very interesting to hear you talk about where this came from. And so I got to read the article, obviously, and you actually discussed the time in your life that sort of helped to shape the vision of this brand. So take us back to that experience a little bit.
Well, let me just say the reason why I wanted to get started was because I felt that there was a void in my life. Felt that I was not being my authentic self. And I knew it was because I wasn't being true to who I really was because I was so ashamed or so afraid of what people may say to me because I was different and unique. When I was in middle school, that is when, we're trying to find our identity and shape who we are. And when that moment happened that someone was like, "You're ugly and you need to cover that up," it just did something to me. That seed that was planted for too long. I always say that. And now I'm at a stage in my life where I'm like, you know what? I'm not believing that false narrative anymore. I don't want anyone else to believe any false narratives that someone has said about them because you know what? At the end of the day, they are going on about their life. And we're
Yeah.
still holding on to something that may have happened to us and we don't know how to process it and release it. So that is what inspired me to actually start Hueversity. And actually, it wasn't the first time. I had tried to do another, platform before, but the key to all of this is consistency.
Absolutely.
Not consistent with that. You know how you fiddle around or you're trying to think of a name and stuff like that, but this one just sticks for me. And I just hope that it goes, far and that we just bring awareness. And I hope at the end of the day that someone is, inspired and uplifted by, me sharing my story and my journey.
Yeah. So as I was reading the article, I read it again today. I probably read that thing so many times now. But as I was reading it, like I got taken back to a place, right? You're talking about being sort of middle school age and being in that locker room and having that like embarrassing dressing out moment that you have to have anyway, right? Like nobody wants to put on those PE clothes and have to take off your clothes during puberty, right? Anyways. And like it's such a real moment. Like it just took me back to a place I remember like trying to hide during that experience because of my own skin issues, right? At the time,
Yeah.
I had some darkening of my pigmentation on my back that was very, very visible. And so getting dressed for PE was like the most uncomfortable moment in my day as a middle schooler. So I'm reading this article and I'm reading about you putting on those shorts, and then tell them what is it that happened when you were during this experience.
So I vaguely remember, just getting dressed, minding my own business, and girls in the locker room or whatever. And once it was all said and done, I remember the girl was like, "What is that on your leg?" And I was like, "It's my birthmark." And then that girl was like, "That's ugly and that needs to be covered up." And I was just like, well, if you think it, then I guess it does need to be covered up and it is ugly. And at the time, like I mentioned before, that's the age that we're trying to find our identity. And so even though that person had no man, they didn't have like a real strong presence in my life, they had a really long impact because
Wow.
that experience, um, sorry,
Yeah.
that experience just changed how I felt about myself.
Yeah.
And like I said, it took me so many years to now, say, no, I don't, what you said to me, it has no truth, you
Yeah,
know. So
yeah. I really appreciate your vulnerability because I know that this is a subject. It's not even something that I personally talk a lot about in my own life, my own experience, and so I know how difficult this is, and so I appreciate. I can relate to it on such a deep level because I've been there in my own way too, and it's interesting that you said that this young girl she didn't make a big impression in your life, but she had this major impact in your head. So how did this affect you in your life? How did this show up later on in life, way past the initial experience?
well, I wasn't myself, for one, and we live in Texas. Well, I live in Texas, and summer months hot. Instead of wearing shorts, I would be in pants.
Yep.
I rarely wore a bathing suit. I just it just didn't make any sense how I just pretty much covered up myself because I did not want to relive that experience. I did
Yeah.
not want anyone to already state the obvious. Like, I already know that it's something on my leg. Now, you know, and at the end of the day, I've probably already been my worst critic. So I don't need for you to remind me of something that's unique or different about me, especially if I haven't, addressed those insecurities within myself and dealt with, how to be comfortable in my skin.
Yeah.
So, as
Yeah.
a result, I say now, yeah, I've been a pretty good friend, but you probably don't even know me really because that was something that I was struggling with, throughout my life.
No. So that again, I totally know this experience. For you, it was wearing long pants. For me, I used to wear turtlenecks in the summer. I used to wear sleeveless turtlenecks all the time in that Texas heat, just like you. I was born and raised in Houston. And I used to be so self-conscious about the skin around my neck and my chest that I didn't want anybody. I didn't want anybody to see it because I didn't want to have a conversation. I love it. It's funny hearing it because you're like, oh, it's my birthmark. I
Yeah.
didn't know what to say mine was. So, I mean, I used to lie. Oh, well, I got burned. Like, I used to say all kinds of crazy things because I just didn't want it to be a subject. I didn't want it to be one more thing, right? And I think
Mhm.
it's interesting because, yeah, we can put on clothes and try and disguise it, but it's our skin.
Yeah.
There's only so much you can do to really hide that, and why should we? So I love that you have gotten to a space where you feel like you've sort of started to bloom more and you're sort of uncovering the real you. What was it that allowed you to get past the story that got planted in your head when you were in middle school?
There were a few days and nights that I just cried,
Yeah.
and just questioning God. Like, God, why?
Hmm.
You know, um, but as a result, I just started to change that for myself. Started reading more books, changing my perspective. That helped me along the way. And then I was like, well, why not me? I am a fun loving, loyal person. Maybe my voice can help someone else. So I just started to change my perspective on it. At the end of the day, this is what I say: it's not going nowhere. So
Yeah, yeah.
might as well get used to it. And if you have a problem, then that's on you. It's not on me. So I don't want to own any type of negativity that someone has. It's like I'm not owning that because
Good.
it really does not matter anyway. At the end of the day, and going back to the word, he said there are no flaws. So if he says it's no flaws, then I have to stand on that because the world is going to say whatever. They're going to
Yeah.
say, nah, she ugly, or she has something about her that's not cute. And I'm just like, oh, well, if that's what you think, so be it. But your opinion doesn't matter to me like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a powerful place to be now because I know how hard it can be for someone who's not there, right? Because
Yeah.
I mean, when you're young, especially, you say things like, well, I don't care what they say, or sticks and stones, right? Like we say all of these things that about us being so tough and not affected by the things that people say, but in reality, we internalize so much of that. And over time, it makes us show up different in the world. It makes us scared to fully express ourselves in the world. And so I think that it's really powerful that you can share the story of having overcome that, because there's so many people who are still afraid to roll those pants up, right? And to actually step out and step into the truest expression of themselves, which is why I really appreciated, learning more about what it is that you do, because I really, I mean, on so many levels, I really relate to everything that you shared. So moving from that. So there are people who might watch this video and they might be wondering, what do I do, right? Maybe they've had some similar experiences. Maybe they've struggled with their own insecurities. What message do you have for those people?
Well, I'm no expert. But what I can say for me, what helped me is one, like I mentioned before, shifting my perception about my birthmark, and then acknowledging it, like it's there, because for the most part, I was hiding it. So acknowledging it, realizing that it's there. Something else that I would say is go back to the moment that caused you to feel indifferent about yourself. Go back to that moment. Whatever you have to do, if you have to write it out, if you have to relive that moment, do that so that you can release and move forward. And that is something that I did. I wrote out the girl, like that's crazy. I still remember the girl name.
That's powerful. Like that shows you how big of a deal, what a big imprint that had, right? That you still remember this girl from 6th grade or middle school.
Yes. So I would say reliving the moment and releasing, and just act, for guidance and direction, and surround yourself with people that celebrate you and that tolerate you, that really can see your beauty outside of your exterior and your aesthetic. That's what I would say to help along on your journey. No journey is alike, and everyone has their different way of going through their process. I mean, for me, now I'm starting to feel like I can bloom and I can blossom. But that took 2 decades for me to even get to that point, because that did happen in middle school. And I'm not going to say my age right now, but that did take some time for me to get over. And I think if you just have in your mind, like, what kind of life do you want to live moving forward? Is it continuing to stay in a place that doesn't serve you? Or do you really just want to be your authentic self? And I know for me, to live my authentic life, I had to make some changes in my mind and the way I move. And that's the path that I'm on now. I know that I didn't want to continue to stay in that space, and I want us to be free. I want us to be liberated.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. And one of the things that you said that really stuck out for me was does this thing serve you, right? Does this story that you've been telling yourself over and over and over again about your worth because of whatever that insecurity is, does that serve you? Does it help you when you're moving forward? And just like Dominique, that's one of my favorite things to do. I'm a journal fanatic. I've got like 5 on my desk right now. Right? But actually taking the time to sit with yourself and to pay attention. What is the story that I'm feeding myself? Is it true? Does my birthmark really mean that I'm not good enough? Does my skin issue really mean that I'm not worthy of having the success that I want, right? And really starting to rewrite those stories, because we don't have to be attached to them. And that's the beauty. I think that's the power in your story, is that you could be in one place, right? You can be in a position where you feel like you're not enough, and you can feel really insecure about who you are and how you show up in the world, but you can get over that with some work, right? With some work. Dominique did some work. It took her some time and it took her some work, but she was able to do that. And I think that is the beauty of your story, is not only are you this beautiful woman, obviously, but you have this incredible story that you can share. And so many people like us who've experienced it can now look at you and say, you know what, if Dominique was able to get past that, certainly I can, right? Huh. So I think that this interview has probably inspired quite a few people. I mean, your story and your platform that you're creating is incredibly powerful. If someone would like to follow your story, follow you, and learn more about the Hueversity brand, where can they find you?
Yes, so follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Hueversity. It's Hueversity. And in my description on the Instagram page, I have the link to the article that I was featured in for Voyage Houston. So you can read more information there.
Yes, and if you are one of my peeps and you're wanting to read Dominique's article, shoot me a message. I've got it. I've read it a ton of times. I'd be more than happy to send that your way as well. And we'll go ahead and make sure that we've got a link to the Instagram in the comments so that you guys can follow the brand as well. So I just want to take a quick second. I know that you're a busy woman. I know that you've got a lot going on. And I just want to thank you for coming today and sharing your story, but also being vulnerable. I mean, there were some moments there when I was like, this girl's trying to make me cry on the Facebook. But it's such a powerful story. And I so appreciate you taking the time to join me today.
Thank you so much, Cece, for having me and allowing me to share my story. So I really appreciate it. Kudos to you.
Absolutely. So thank you guys. Make sure that you follow Hueversity so that you can get some inspiration and encouragement on your journey, right? Otherwise, I look forward to chatting with you guys soon. Ciao.
Bye.